Well, welcome everyone. It's hard to believe that we are now in week 3. So what I wanted to do is give you a little bit of hints on how to work on project 1. There's always a whole bunch of ways that you can do it. So I've tried to simplify it with you by creating the starter file. So I'm going to go through it as detailed as I possibly can, and hopefully that you'll get something out of it. Now, I have provided this file for you so that you're welcome to use it. So let me start off with the very top over here is make sure you put your name on here and Chada Project 1 in here, and then just a little brief purpose of the program. This will simulate a clock. One of the things that is most common mistake is having the user not input the time by either getting the system time or by just manually doing. Another thing that also happens is trying to put all the time, the hours, the minutes, and the seconds together. Well, that's okay. That's acceptable in this world. However, it's not good coding practices because it doesn't give you the opportunity to check each and every one. Plus, if you mess up on one, you have to re-input them all as opposed to just getting the actual data for one until you finally get it right. So what I've done it in a structure in here. You don't have to use a structure, but I've done it in a structure. I think that's the easiest way, and I highly recommend that you do it. So you notice that I have the hours, the minutes, and the seconds all in here. I've initialized them to 0, and I'm keeping track of whether it's AM or PM in a little string in here. This is just a default constructor, which is okay for a structure in here, and it just initializes everything to 0 when you create an object of the time clock. So let me go and look at some of the functions that I've written in here. So you'll have to write display menu in here and get menu selection in here, process selection. So here is get initial time, and I'm going to show you that as well. So what we're going to do here is get integer is written for you, clear screen is written for you, and center text, if you want to use it, is written for you. So let's just take a quick look at main here. So notice that I am declaring a variable, I'm initializing it, and I'm giving the comment on the purpose of it in here. So then we have a structured time clock, and it's simple, it stores hours, minutes, and seconds, and probably I should put in an AM and PM. So I think I'll do that right now. And then I'm getting the initial time in here. So here I'm getting both the hours, the minutes, the seconds, and I'm automatically creating whether it's going to be AM or PM. So let's see what get time looks like. So I've given you the get time in here, the first one in here. So you have the time.hour equals get integer. Now get integer is written for you already. So what this does here is this creates an instance of a time clock structure, and it returns it down here. So you can set something in main. So you're going to do is the time.minutes equals get integer. Only difference is you put in, please enter the number of minutes or whatever you want to put in here. And 0 is the minimum, but 59 will be the maximum in here. And then, of course, the time.seconds equals, please enter the second, 0:59. I don't recommend getting two inputs in here, the AM or PM, because that's just more work and more things that can go wrong in here. There's really no reason for it. So if it's less than 12, then you know it's AM. If it's more than 12 or 12 or more, then you know it's going to be PM. Midnight is going to be 0 in here. So let's go take a look at my main in here again. Let's go back to main. And we're just doing we're getting the initial time in here. So now we have it set. Then we're displaying the clock in here. So it should display exactly what your initial input is. So if you put in, I always use 11:59:59 p.m. So I'll put in 23:59:59. So we're displaying the time in here. Then we're getting the selection, what you want to do, whether you want to add a minute, add a second, add an hour, or exit. I've written the function for you, so you don't have to do that in here. So again, what we're doing here is we're using if selection equals a not equal exit selection, then we're going to clear the screen and we're going to process the selection. Now notice I'm not using a while true loop. Please do not use a while true loop. It's always better to use a while condition loop in here. So we're going to go and do this here, then display menu. So again, I have with displaying stars in here. What this does is going to display 25 stars here. That's an easy way to do it. You can do a for loop for I equals 1, I less than or equal to 25, and then you can do the C out of start. But this is a lot easier here. And then we're using unsigned here because we obviously need to have a positive number in here. So we're going to go in here so you don't have to worry too much about this. So you write the code to display the menu. It's nothing more than press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this, press 3, and so that displays the menu. Then you're going to get the menu selection here, and I've given you for you, so it's going to be between 0 and 4, and then you're going to just keep doing it until it gets in here. Process selection is fairly cut and dry. So if it's 1, you're going to call a function that increments the hour. Otherwise, call a function that increments the minutes. Call a function that increments the seconds. And then there's a break in here. So I always put in check here. Notice that the default should never ever be initialized or even executed. But I always put it in here just in case. So we went to get initial time. Here's our get integer again. We've given this here. Very simple. So all you have to do is put in a number. Now it does not do checking if you put in a string like ABC in here, but this is just a simple way for you to get it. Later on, you'll have code that's going to check for that. And this clears the screen. Do not use system CLS because it does not work on a Mac. And of course, if you're Mac, you have the system clear. Use this. This works on either one. I'm going to be working on a Windows machine, so system clear is not going to work for me. Then you're going to display the clock. So you write the clock. I believe that I did the clock. I displayed the 12-hour clock, then I displayed the 24-hour clock. Remember that they need to be side by side. If you choose to use this function, center text, this will center the text based upon the length that you sit in here. So you're sending the text to be centered, the length here, how long you want it to be, and whether you want the fill carrier. The fill carrier by default will be a space in here. So far, this is hopefully easy for you to do. I am going to be having more emails with more hints in here. So please feel free to take a look at those, and hopefully that will help you. What I want to do now is actually run the program. Now, this is my code. It's a completed program. It's a little bit different than the starter program. I'm using special things in regex and SSStream to validate data input in here. So you don't have to worry about that at this point in time. You will have this code later on, which I believe will help you to do it. So again, we have the time clock structure here, hours, minutes, seconds, AM in here, stores whether it's AM or PM in here. And these are the functions that I use in here. So notice that I have display menu. I decided to be a little fancy and I have create menu item. You don't need to do that. I would just recommend going and doing press 1 to do this, press 2 in here. So again, the main is basically the same in here. So I'm going to run the program now, and I'm going to show you exactly what your results should be and how it looks in here. So again, notice that I have display clock, which calls display clock 12 and display clock 24. Remember, they need to be side by side with stars in here. So let's go and take a look at what it looks like when we run the program. And I'm going to enter. So let me start off with entering 24. Okay, notice that it gives me an invalid number. Because obviously there are 24 hours in a day, but valid clock is 0 to 23. So I always like to do 23. and it makes it easier to check if my turnaround going into midnight is correct. So the next thing again is 59. So I'll put in 59 for the minutes. I'll put in 59 for the seconds. And once I do that, it should automatically display the clock. Now that's not a requirement, but it's good practice. So notice that we have a 12-hour clock. Now you notice that the 12-hour and the 24-hour are text and it's centered, and I have my stars all nice in here. Do not, so let me repeat this, do not use tabs to format. Use set width in there. That'll be much easier for you. So again, we have 11:59 p.m. and 23:59. Obviously, we don't need a.m. or p.m. on that. Then I have my menu, add 1 hour, add 1 minute, add 1 second, and exit the program. Notice the stars around that. So I'm going to make my selection, and hopefully I don't embarrass myself. I'm going to hit a 5, and it tells me invalid number. So let's start off by adding a minute. If I add a minute, this should update, this should update, and of course these two here should update, but the second should stay the same. So let's add a minute and see what happens. And the clear screen is before I display the clock again. So be careful, don't clear your screen after you display the clock. Do it before you display it. So notice that we have 12:00:59 and it's now AM. And then we have 00 and 59 seconds. So let's add now a second. So that should update the minutes on both of these, but leave the hours intact. And we have 12:01 and we have 00:01. Let's go now and add an hour. So we're going to keep adding hours. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10. Now when I hit 1 to add an hour, this should jump from AM to PM. This should jump to 12, which it does. Let's add an hour again, and it's 13 and 14. Now let's add one more second, and we have 12:01:01 and 14:01:01. Let's add one more minute, 2:02:02, 14:02, and then we're done. We're going to exit the program and call it a day. So what I recommend doing, if you have a problem with this, please make sure that you contact me, and I'll do the very best that I can to answer your questions in here. When you submit the code, if you do it in a single file, just submit the CPP file. You don't have to zip it and send all the project files, because I really need the CPP file anyway. That's all I really need. Other projects, we'll talk about that later on. But for this one, all you really need to do is submit the CPP file. So make sure you're using the starter file. You don't have to, but it's certainly going to give you a jump start in here. If you decide that you want to do this in a class, that's acceptable. I just feel that it's much easier for you to do it in a single file and not really mess around with classes. Classes are going to be required in the next project. So, and I believe the next 2 projects. So be prepared for them. You'll get projects are actually, classes are actually due in, I believe, next week in here. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to assist you in any way that I possibly can.